Welcome to Tech Talk with Craig Peterson, show number 645. Another big show today, another one of our consumer electronics products show. We have about 15 guests who are lined up today to talk to us about some of the latest and coolest stuff. We also, of course, have our brand new Ask an Apple Expert segment. We'll be running that, about 5:30 today. You'll enjoy that. Dawn can't make it with us this week from Small Dog Electronics, so Rebecca's going to be with us, and we'll talk a little bit about her background. But bottom line, she was a consultant for Apple, used to go out in the field and help a lot of people. So we got questions from you, and if you have a question, by the way, go online to WGIRAM.com or 967thewave.com, and right there you'll find the Small Dog Electronics questionnaire. Just type Small Dog in the search button. Well, let's get to some articles in the news this week before we get to our guests. We'll be talking about everything today, from D-Link and the new cloud services, Sling Media, what they're doing today. We've got some really good guys on today and gals. Gazelle, talk about recycling your electronics and getting a few bucks for it. Aaron's going to be joining us talking about, that's ARIN, by the way, about what's happening with the internet, the new internet protocols that are going into place more and more this year than they have been in previous years. And let's see, who else are going to have? Never Lost is going to be with us. You might have heard of them before with Hertz. And Michael Palladino from Coby USA is going to be with us. They gave me one of their little tablets to play with. Let me tell you, I'm quite impressed. Coby, I've always been kind of wondering about them because you'll see them in kind of lower end stores from time to time, such as truck stops and things. So does it make sense to buy their stuff that's inexpensive or not? Well, turns out my playing around with this thing is it definitely is. It's a very nice little tablet. So we'll talk about what Coby is doing here coming up in the show. Well, this first article is from CNN Technology here, and this is kind of interesting. 1 year later, in other words, 1 year after purchasing an iPad, it's typically worth about half its original price. Now, that's according to statistics out there. But the Kindle is worth 1/4 to 1/3 of its original price. Now, isn't that interesting? With Apple products, upgrading memory doesn't retain much value. Now, that's true with a lot of things in life. If you have a car, you add a lot of features to it, or a motorcycle, whatever it is. Hey, yeah, I added these new cool wheels, I added this, that, and the other thing. It's worth like $50. You can spend $5,000, but it's worth $50 in the resale marketplace. Same thing's true with computers. You know, you can add a lot of memory to them. Hard disk space can kind of get some of your money back, but the memory definitely doesn't. And the Kindle just has not historically retained its value, especially when compared to the iPod now, or iPad, I should say. Now, why is that? Well, basically because the iPad is a more general purpose device and people can see it being used for a lot of things, and the iPad not. This is, by the way, according to Gazelle, and as I said, Israel is going to be with us today from Gazelle, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. Now, toward the end of the article here, however, some types of Apple gadgets are less wise investments for gearheads who like to resell their wares in exchange for newer models. Paying an extra $100 or $200 for double or triple the storage space will never result in a decent payoff later. Of course, buying the latest gadget might not be the best bet either for your money. This is kind of cool if you're a tech guy or gal and you've been looking for some of the high-tech jobs. Where is it going? Well, it looks like Linux might be the way to go for you in your career. Now, this is according to the Linux Foundation, who, of course, is a big proponent of Linux. They say if you want a well-paying engineering job, you should learn Linux. At least that's the word from the Linux Foundation, the not-for-profit that sponsors the work of Linus Torvalds here. On Tuesday, the foundation joined forces with job site Dice.com to release a survey that shows a rising demand for developers steeped in Linux, including developers and system administrator, Straight Tours, I should say, the foundation surveyed more than 2,000 hiring managers, businesses, government organizations, and staffing agencies that use Linux, and 81% of respondents said that hiring Linux talent is a priority in 2012. Linux is a mainstay in the web world. This is from Wired.com, by the way, underpinning that massive operations of companies like Google, Facebook, and Twitter. And it's been on Wall Street forever and ever. You're listening to Tech Talk with Craig Peterson, going through some articles in the news this week. Then we'll be getting into the interview section of today's show. This next one here is the Motorola Droid 4. This is also from Wired.com. Now, this is kind of interesting. We've talked before about our friends up at Research in Motion with the Blackberry and how it's just been dying, and for some good reasons. They really owned the marketplace for email, for business communications, for having security, for having all that sort of stuff. Well, where are they today? Of course, they've really messed up. Their network being down for a few days was a terrible thing. And, they've also, I think, messed up in the keyboard in the user interface, because they've changed it a few times. They've changed the operating system multiple times over the last few years. But Motorola here is trying to push all the right buttons again with their Droid 4. Now, this thing is incredible, because where Motorola has spent their time is on the keyboard. Unlike the iPhone that has a little on-screen keyboard that's next to useless, and so many other devices, this nice little Blackberry type gadget here, again, it's the Motorola Droid 4, has a gorgeous keyboard, a very, very good one. So moving on here from the Crackberry here, the Droid, first released in 2008, was a perfect crossover phone for inductees leaving Blackberries for the new platform. And with both physical keyboards and touch-based controls, Droids have been the go-to Android phones for remaining keyboard holdouts. The Droid 4, which just landed on their doorstop at CNET today, carries on the Droid brand tradition by focusing on the keyboard as the phone's most polished feature. The chassis is solid to the touch with hard, steely lines and a gunmetal colored plastic finish that's in step with all previous Droid generations. Sheathed beneath the slide-out screen is the raised 5-row keyboard, edge lit for night use and topped with a brushed finish, almost a matte-like in feel. It's easily Motorola's finest keyboard construction efforts. There are two sticking points, though, and one is literally a sticking point. First, the sliding mechanism is a bit too sticky, making it something of a pain to quickly push out the keyboard. Of course, these types of devices, over time, the keyboard's going to get a little easier to slide out. And when closed, the slides of the phone are flush with one another, making it even more difficult to slide out the keyboard in a flash. Second, because of the keyboard's elongated horizontal layout, I found my thumbs had to stretch further than what I'm used to during thumb typing. Make no mistake, the keyboard itself is wonderfully constructed, and the raised keys provide for great tactile response. I'm just not a fan of the sheer width of the keyboard itself. It's a complete refutation of the historically vertical Blackberry layout. It sounds like a small quibble, but can result in glaring typos. And I'm holding up a photo here of it for the people that are watching this on YouTube and on craigpeterson.com as well. Motorola, however, is also keeping in mind the type of audience that loves keyboards the most, suits. The software that comes with the Droid 4 screams corporate productivity, ostensibly giving you more ways to get stuff done no matter where you are. Motocast apps, for instance, let you access files on your home computer remotely from the phone, like a Dropbox or virtualization client. Google's Enterprise Application Suite could supplant the need for a Motorola solution, but you can use Motocast to access photos, music, documents with all kinds of different file extensions. So if you don't want your whole life in Google's cloud, you don't have to put it there. In the same vein, the phone supports GoToMeeting access, wireless printing, and quick office document editing. It's an invitation to bring your your office to work with you wherever you may be. So very cool. If you're thinking about moving over to Android and you haven't had a good little device to use before, and you've been kind of wondering, I'm used to that Crackberry keyboard and I like those nice keyboards, look at the Motorola Droid 4. Lots of nice little buttons there that you can push. Okay, you're listening to Tech Talk with Craig Peterson, going through some articles in the news this week. And we're going to talk right now about HP. Now, I cry. I shed a tear when I think of HP. Just such a phenomenal company. It made some of the best equipment ever. These scientific calculators like this one here, the HP 35. What a beautiful old marketing picture here. But the HP 35 calculator, which was their first calculator, a scientific calculator, I've used these before. I envied them way back when I was in school. And I have still some HP calculators that I use. Just fantastic stuff. But in 1971, HP commissioned a marketing study to see if anyone would buy a $395 pocket calculator. Remember, that was a lot of money back then. It's probably closer to $1,000 today. The marketer's verdict: make it the size of a typewriter because nobody wants a small machine. An article here from Wired. And if you remember the 35, or if you don't know what it was a fair-sized calculator. It would, 2-3 hands in size here, the surface of your hands. It could do exponents, logarithms, natural as well as base 10, square roots, arcs, sines, cosines, tangents. Could do the inverse. It can exchange x and y. Of course, store recall, the RPN that HP has become famous for. And, of course, the standard subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division here. And that's it. That was your $1,000 calculator. Well, Bill Hewlett ignored what the marketers had to say, and they introduced HP 35 scientific calculator. It was a hit. It was just fantastic here. It made slide rules obsolete. I used a slide rule in college. In 2009, it was honored by the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers as a milestone in electrical engineering and computing. It's just absolutely phenomenal. Well, of course, we've gone on to today where HP's really been messing things up here. Back to the article from Wired.com. It spent $3.3 billion trying to turn the touchpad into an iPad killer, which is too bad because it was a really good device. That project was unceremoniously dumped after just a few months on the market. When I say it was a great device, I'm talking about the touchpad. Of course, the iPad is too, but in 2007, then CEO Mark Hurd slashed the company's research and development budgets by 20%, $700 million. He burned the furniture to please Wall Street, HP chairman Ray Lane told Reuters last summer, saying that it would take time for HP to turn the company around. Quote, "The problem is the constant budget cutting in R&D has a long-term impact," says Phil McKinney, who until last year was CTO of HP's PC group. It would take years for HP to get its next hit product off the ground, and HP will have to have the stamina to stick with new products long enough to turn them into winners, which is, I couldn't believe they killed their touchpad. Back to the article. That's the opposite of what happened with the touchpad. Going into the acquisition of Palm, it was well understood that this needed to be a multi-year investment. All of a sudden, a year after the acquisition, they ended up killing the program. A few months after that, Lane and the rest of the HP board tapped Meg Whitman to run the company. She's walking a tightrope. With her second quarterly earnings call set for next week, Wall Street isn't going to wait years for another killer product. All signs are that Whitman really believes HP is going to crank out the new products that will help her keep growing. In a November earnings call with financial analysts, she said HP will bump up R&D spending in 2012. She wouldn't say by how much. And that will count on internal development efforts for what Whitman calls evolutionary innovation. As for the next pocket calculator, it will come, but Whitman concedes it'll take time. Listen, R&D in the technology business is a longer-term gain, she said during the call. I think investments we make in 2012, you'll start to see in 2014 and 2015. So I'm upset with HP over the years. They had some of the best servers in the world, bar none. The best calculators in the world. They just don't make them anymore. And some of the best scientific instruments, that they're really kind of out of that business as well. They went and bought companies, including some inexpensive PC makers. They went ahead, who wants to be in that marketplace? Wait a minute, there's no margin there. They went ahead and bought Palm, which was a great opportunity for them to compete head-to-head with Apple in the phone space and also in the tablet space, and then they messed that one up. They bought, of course, digital equipment and